There comes a moment in every man's life when he faces a painful choice: fight harder or quietly walk away. Most men believe that staying proves love, that explaining themselves one more time, giving one more chance, or sacrificing a little more will finally make someone appreciate them. But what if the opposite is true? What if the moment you choose to walk away with dignity is the exact moment you become impossible to forget? Not because you are trying to punish anyone, not because you want them to chase you, but because nothing is more powerful than a person who values self-respect over desperation. Hello everyone, welcome to the Magnetic Masculinity channel. In this video, you'll discover why walking away is one of the greatest Stoic acts of strength, and how it transforms not only the way others see you, but the way you see yourself. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may completely change how you think about love, respect, and the courage to let go. Now let's get started. Part 1. The hardest step is the first one. Walking away is one of the hardest decisions a person can make, not because your feet refuse to move, but because your heart keeps looking back. Most people stay far longer than they should. They stay in conversations where they are no longer heard. They stay in relationships where respect has quietly disappeared. They stay because they hope that one more explanation, one more sacrifice, or one more chance will somehow change another person's heart. But hope, without self-respect, slowly becomes a prison. A Stoic man understands a painful truth. Not every battle is meant to be won. Some are meant to reveal what is no longer worth fighting for. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to accept reality as it is, not as he wished it would be. That lesson is just as powerful in relationships as it is in life. The moment you stop trying to force someone to value you, something inside you begins to change. Your energy returns. Your thoughts become clearer. Your dignity starts to heal. Walking away is not an act of weakness. It is often the first act of genuine courage. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop asking someone else to recognize your worth, and finally recognize it yourself. And once that happens, the journey is no longer about losing someone. It becomes about finding yourself again. Part 2. The more you hold on, the more you lose yourself. There is a quiet tragedy that happens long before a relationship ends. It begins the moment you start abandoning yourself just to keep someone else. At first, the changes seem small. You stop expressing what you truly feel because you fear conflict. You ignore your own boundaries because you fear losing them. You apologize for things that were never your fault. Little by little, you become someone you barely recognize. The Stoics warned against this long ago. Epictetus taught that no person has the power to take away your inner freedom unless you willingly surrender it. And that surrender rarely happens all at once. It happens through countless small compromises made out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of starting over. But ask yourself this: if keeping someone requires you to lose your dignity, your peace, and your identity, have you really kept anything worth having? A Stoic man knows that love should never demand the sacrifice of self-respect. The right relationship may ask for patience. It may ask for understanding. But it should never require you to become a stranger to yourself. The moment you choose your principles over your fears, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop begging to be understood. And for the first time in a long time, you begin standing on solid ground again. Because the greatest loss is never the person who walks away. It is the version of yourself you leave behind while trying to make them stay. And in the next lesson, you'll discover why the people who have the courage to leave often become the ones others can never truly forget. Before we continue, I'd like you to reflect on one honest question. Have you ever stayed somewhere far longer than you should have, simply because you were afraid of letting go? If this message speaks to your experience, write "I choose self-respect" in the comments. You never know who might read your words and find the courage to walk away from something that has been quietly breaking them for far too long. And if you're on a journey to build inner strength, emotional resilience, and the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, subscribe to the channel, and become part of a community that believes true power begins within. Now let's continue, because the next lesson reveals why walking away doesn't make you lose your value. It often reveals it for the very first time. Part 3. Walking away reveals your true value. One of life's greatest paradoxes is this. People often fail to recognize your value while you are constantly trying to prove it. The more available you become, the more predictable you appear. The more you explain yourself, the less your words seem to matter. But something changes the moment you stop fighting for a place where your presence is no longer appreciated. Your silence is no longer filled with desperation. It becomes filled with dignity. A Stoic man does not walk away to make someone suffer. He walks away because he refuses to let his self-respect suffer any longer. That is a completely different mindset. When you leave without bitterness, without revenge, and without trying to win one final argument, you send a message that words could never express. You show that your peace is no longer for sale. Ironically, this is often the moment when people begin to see what they had overlooked. Not because you became more valuable overnight, but because your value was no longer hidden beneath constant pursuit. The Stoics understood that we cannot control how others perceive us. We can only control whether we remain faithful to our own principles. And there is extraordinary freedom in that realization. Because once your worth is no longer dependent on another person's recognition, rejection loses its power over you. You stop trying to convince. You stop trying to chase. You simply continue becoming the person you were always meant to be. And that quiet transformation changes not only how others remember you, it changes how you remember yourself. In the next lesson, you'll discover why every ending has the power to become the beginning of the strongest version of your life, if you have the courage to embrace it. Part 4. Every goodbye is an invitation to become someone new. Most people think walking away is the end of the story. The Stoics saw it differently. Sometimes walking away is the first chapter of the life you were always meant to live. Think about it. How many dreams have been delayed because you were trying to save a relationship that was already falling apart? How much energy has been wasted replaying old conversations, waiting for messages that never came, or hoping someone would finally become the person they promised to be? Time is the one thing you can never recover. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how short life truly is. Every day spent clinging to what no longer serves you is a day you cannot get back. A Stoic man understands this. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" he asks, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" That single question transforms pain into wisdom. Instead of becoming trapped by heartbreak, he allows hardship to refine his character. He becomes more patient, more disciplined, more compassionate, but also far less willing to betray his own values. That is the hidden gift of walking away. It forces you to rebuild your life on something stronger than another person's promises. You begin creating routines that restore your confidence. You reconnect with forgotten ambitions. You strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, and rediscover the parts of yourself that had quietly disappeared while you were fighting to keep someone else. One day you look back and realize something extraordinary. The person you were so afraid of losing was never as important as the person you finally found, yourself. And once you experience that kind of freedom, you stop fearing endings, because you understand that every ending carries within it the possibility of a stronger beginning. And in the final lesson, you'll discover why the greatest power of walking away has nothing to do with changing someone else's heart. It has everything to do with changing your own life forever. Part 5. The greatest power of walking away is that you finally walk toward yourself. In the end, walking away was never about defeating another person. It was about refusing to defeat yourself. Many people believe the greatest victory is making someone regret losing you. The Stoics would disagree. The greatest victory is reaching a point where you no longer need anyone's regret in order to feel complete. That is real freedom. Because when your happiness depends on another person's return, they still control a part of your life, even in their absence. But the day you stop waiting, the day you stop checking whether they miss you, the day you stop imagining the conversation that may never happen. Something remarkable begins to unfold. Your mind grows quieter. Your heart becomes lighter. Your future becomes larger than your past. You no longer wake up asking, will they come back? Instead, you ask, who am I becoming today? And that single question changes everything. A Stoic man understands that life is too precious to be spent chasing people who have already chosen another path. He does not waste years trying to reopen doors that were meant to close. He thanks life for the lesson. He carries the wisdom forward, and he continues walking. Not because he stopped caring, but because he finally started caring for himself. Ironically, this is the version of you that people often remember the longest. Not because you disappeared, but because you left with dignity, without anger, without revenge, without begging for one last chance. There is a quiet strength in that kind of departure. It cannot be faked. It cannot be taught through clever words. It can only be earned by choosing self-respect over fear, peace over attachment, and purpose over desperation. So if life is asking you to let go of something today, do not see it as the end of your story. See it as an invitation to become wiser, stronger, calmer, and more faithful to the person you were always meant to become. Because sometimes the most powerful step you will ever take is the one that leads you away from what no longer deserves your heart and toward the life that has been waiting for you all along. Conclusion. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about walking away is believing that it is an act of loss. In reality, it is often an act of return. A return to your values. A return to your peace. A return to the person you were before fear convinced you that your worth depended on someone else's choice. The Stoics never taught us to stop loving people, the lesson to carry into your life. As you leave this video, don't ask yourself, who do I need to hold on to? Instead, ask, what part of myself have I been holding back out of fear? Maybe you've stayed silent when you should have spoken. Maybe you've tolerated disrespect because you feared being alone. Maybe you've spent so much energy chasing acceptance that you've forgotten your own dreams. Today, choose differently. Choose self-respect over approval. Choose inner peace over emotional chaos. Choose growth over attachment. Remember this, walking away is not giving up on someone else. It is refusing to give up on yourself. If this message gave you a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and join a community of people committed to living with Stoic wisdom, emotional resilience, and quiet strength. Your support inspires us to keep creating thoughtful content that helps people build stronger minds, healthier relationships, and lives guided by purpose rather than fear. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.